Hello, everyone, and welcome to the season opener of season 3 of Doctor Who. Today, we're going to be talking about Galaxy 4, which, funnily enough, is not a sequel to the first three galaxies. This is its own thing. Also, funnily enough, this was broadcast in 4 parts, and it's actually Steven's second trip in the TARDIS. Before we begin, be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment saying what you thought of this review or this story. Galaxy 4 is an actually pretty good story. It's one of those typical stories of two warring races and the Doctor's just kind of dropping right into the middle of their conflict. However, this conflict is slightly more interesting. This takes place on this planet, which for some reason I am blanking on the name. I'm not sure if the planet was actually named or not in the story, but whatever it is inconsequential. It's said to explode or blow up in a couple days, a couple weeks, very soon. However, the Doctor actually discovers that it's a couple days from now. However, first, they discover these small little robot kind of drone things, bumping against the TARDIS and kind of exploring it, getting to know it from the outside, of course. And, Vicky dubs them as Chumblies. She decides to call them Chumblies for some reason, because according to her, as she put it, they have a bit of a chumbly kind of movement. So she calls them Chumblies, and they assume that they are malevolent. They're basically avoiding it like the plague. They're trying to make sure not to bump into it or disturb it or upset it in some way. However, they're saved by this female warrior race called the Drovins. They have a rather interesting culture that we don't learn much about. There are the humans; those are called the leaders. But this human in the story is called Maga, and everyone else is basically a clone. And basically, everyone that matters in society is female. All the men, they pretty much killed them all, except for a couple. The couple, they basically keep the couple as for reproductive purposes, which is rather strange. You would think that such a woman central society would either they either would not reproduce the same way that regular humans do, or they would find some way to reproduce on their own asexually without men. But I can overlook it. It's 60s television. I don't think that much thought went into it. As we go on, we learn we kind of they base the travelers are taken to their spaceship, and we discover more of the Drovins' plans. Their plans are to overtake the other race, which is called the Rills. Their plans to overtake their spaceship and use it to fly off. However, and they basically talk these Rills up as if they're the most evil thing, worst thing ever, because they're disgusting, versus the Drovins are, beautiful, apparently. I didn't really find them beautiful, but that doesn't matter. But however, as we learn in the course of the story, which I think rather interesting, is we learned that the Drovins are actually pretty evil. They have a penchant for killing their own and treating their own very harshly, and they have no sympathy towards one another. And in general, they're just not great. While the Rills are more benevolent. They have actual, they have their own idea of good. They have a good idea of good. No pun intended. That's one way of putting it, I guess. And that's really the whole story. Steven is actually kept as a prisoner with the Drovins, while Vicky and the Doctor basically go off to explore. So that's one of the interesting things about this story, I suppose you could say. Only one episode is actually surviving, but the rest have been filled in with Blu-ray. which for some reason I forgot to grab over here. I'm gonna go grab it. Excuse me. Okay, it is not here. I can't really access it at the moment, but the point is, it's a Blu-ray set with actual animation. So, either black and white animation or color animation. I use the black and white animation. However, judging off the surviving episode, which is episode 3, it's called Airlock, I noticed that the animation isn't that true to form. At least, it's not really the same way. It's not as true to the original source as you might hope or believe. I judged that based on cliffhangers and reused sets that were in episode 3, which is the surviving one. Overall, the story is pretty below average. It's okay. I remember the actors didn't like it much because I believe Steven's part was originally written for either Ian or Barbara, but they left a couple stories ago, so they basically had to reuse that script, which I suppose is kind of like in line with how production was at the time. We didn't really have like scheduling, or they didn't really have production blocks. They just kind of wrote scripts all over the place, and they were kind of slotted into anywhere, which didn't really work very great. And this is one of the cases where that proved to be like rather detrimental. That's all for today. That's all for right now. Later on, I'll post a YouTube short talking about Mission to the Unknown. You're gonna want to check that out. So you can do that by hitting subscribe and then hitting all notifications. That way you never miss one of these. I'll catch you guys soon. Bye.